This video will review what primary sources are, how to find them, and some things to consider when working with primary sources. A primary source is a document or other sort of evidence written or created during the time under study, or by one of the persons or organizations directly involved in the event. In short, primary sources are a witness to a specific event in time. Letters, diaries, and speeches are all examples of primary sources. For a more detailed list of examples, please review the research guide. Working with primary sources can be a lot of fun. Working with original documents can give you a window into the past and give life and color to individual events and people. Working with primary sources is like going on an intellectual treasure hunt, where you hunt for tidbits of information contained in these sources for your research. This treasure hunt, while fun, can also be challenging. You, as the researcher, need to provide context and analysis for these primary sources. You must decide what the important information is that is contained in these sources and how to apply this information to the research question or questions that you're trying to answer. The first step to working with primary sources is to figure out where they live. The most obvious place to find primary sources is in an archive. Archives exist to preserve and organize archival collections. And these archives can be affiliated with various institutions like a university, the federal government, a corporation, or religious institutions. Using an archive will usually mean an on-site visit to interact with a collection. You can also find primary sources reproduced in edited volumes available in the library collection. Prior to the era of digitization, reproducing primary source documents in edited collections was a method for making these sources more widely available outside of archives. Primary source databases available through the library, check out the research guide for suggestions, are another way to discover primary sources. These databases often contain digital reproductions of sources with a search interface. Finally, consult the footnotes and bibliographies contained in the secondary sources, the books and journal articles that you've found on your topic. Scholars will often cite the primary sources that contributed to their research product, and this is a good way to help you discover an archive that you should contact for more information or sources reproduced in an edited volume. Working with primary sources housed in an archive will usually involve a road trip to the archive to work with the materials on site. Road trips during these COVID times aren't really a good idea, but even in pre-COVID days, working on site at an archive wasn't always feasible because of the time constraints of the semester and travel expenses. You may still be able to get great information from the archive even though you can't go in person. First, check out the website and see if there is digitized content that they make available. Don't be disappointed if there is no digital content available. Digitizing archival collections is an expensive endeavor, and it can be especially challenging for smaller archives or archives that focus on underrepresented populations. Next, look for finding aids for collections housed at the archive. A finding aid is just like a record for a book in the catalog, just more detailed. In this example, we have a finding aid from Vanderbilt Special Collections and Archives for the Advocates Collection. The finding aid tells us in broad strokes what's available in the collection, the dates of coverage, and the entities involved. We also have more detailed breakdown of the items available in the collection. Using the information in the finding aid, you can contact the archive with questions that you might have about the collection or collections. Contacting the archivist is always a good option and can be a fruitful experience. The library catalog is a great place to discover primary sources that are reproduced in edited collections. Reproducing primary sources in these edited volumes made these sources more accessible to the scholarly community. Not everyone can afford the expense of traveling to an archive, and primary source databases can be quite expensive to purchase. When searching the catalog for primary sources, you'll want to incorporate terms like correspondence or personal narratives in your search string. These terms are often components of subject headings that are often used to describe primary source collections. In my example, I'm using the advanced search in the catalog, and I'm searching for immigration in any field and personal narratives in the subject field. Using this search string, I was able to discover this book, Voices from Mariel, Oral Histories of the 1980 Cuban Boat Lift. Looking at the record, we can see that both of my terms matched in the subject heading field, with personal narratives as a subdivision for the subject heading Mariel Boat Lift 1980, and immigration as a component of a more complex subject heading, dealing with Cuban emigration and immigration. On the Research Guide, you'll find a selection of primary source databases that contain full-text copy of primary source documents. When searching these databases, you will often be able to search not only the index record with basic details about the sources, but also the full text of the document itself. The ability to search the full text of these documents can be powerful as it allows you to target your attention on specific parts of the document. When you are developing your keywords for full-text searching, it is important to keep in mind that the terms we choose to describe people and events today are not the same as the terms that were used 10, 20, or 100 years ago. To be successful, you need to select keywords that are appropriate to the time period of the document. Using period-appropriate terms will mean using keywords that may be culturally insensitive at best and outright racist or sexist at the worst. This is an important consideration to keep in mind when working with primary sources. In the course of your work, you will encounter sources that are sexist or racist, or sources that espouse viewpoints that are widely rejected by today's society. Primary sources capture the good, the bad, and the ugly of human beings and society. Please contact Ramona if you have any questions about using primary sources.